Yeah, well, I guess the first thing is to acknowledge how widespread this event is. That there's 9 separate states of emergency, and then today, of course, the national state of emergency being declared. So it is incredibly significant. There's 3 or 4 really key things. So first of all, there is the effect of the rain and the wind, which, let's face it, we have to deal with reasonably regularly with adverse events, and there are certainly some parts that are absolutely waterlogged. And it's bad enough that this event's pretty severe, but of course it comes on the back of a previous one only just 2 weeks ago. And some parts of the country, like Gisborne, have had 4 in the last 12 months. So there's a lot of soil degradation just because of the fact it's been so wet for so long. And we know that there's going to be some massive issues around going into winter and lack of feed, and all those things that sort of come into play. The second thing is the amount of coastal inundation. So we're seeing, particularly right at this moment in the Hawke's Bay, massive problems where there's been an evacuation declared, where a whole lot of people in Napier have to basically head for the hills because the waves are so high, it's just coming straight in off the coast. What that does for farmland that's coastal, of course, is just sort of those that are completely exposed to seawater is going to be pretty devastating for pasture, let alone what it does for animals and animal welfare. Another significant issue, and it started with Northland the other day, is power cuts. And places like Northland aren't usually afflicted by serious power cuts. So preparedness in terms of, are there enough generators in the district to go around to help with milking? We've got autumn calving starting in Northland at the moment, so it couldn't be a worse time for having no power. Speaking with North Power just yesterday, we know that obviously and quite rightly their staff welfare comes number one. So they'll only go out and do repairs that are absolutely critical to life support. They're not going to risk their staff. So potentially some farmers might be without power for up to 5 days. And that's going to have some pretty significant flow-on effects. So it's all those sorts of things that add in. We know that access in areas with bridge washouts, but even at farm level with culverts and drains just completely blown out, and access to parts of the farm are going to be really problematic right at the moment, but also in the next week or two.
There's obviously going to be a massive clean-up event, but we're not even there yet. We're not even through the worst of it. What's advice are you giving farmers?
Yes, the moment is just be safe. So obviously farmers are passionate about the welfare of their animals, and checking the status of their animals is paramount, and they're going to do that even if it's a risky enterprise to do. But don't take unnecessary risks right at the moment. Make sure your family is safe. Make sure that you know that yourselves, your workers, your neighbours are all in good nick. We know that this is going to be really taxing on some people that are already stressed for a whole variety of reasons as farmers, and this is just going to add a lot more burden. And we're working at the moment having a chat to banks and Inland Revenue about what support can be given. Not right today. Today is all about making sure you're safe and that your house is hopefully secure, your animals are secure. And then we'll start looking at what sort of infrastructure damage and how we help report that through at a community scale to the authorities that need to know.
Have you been hearing other stories? What sort of stories have you been hearing on the grapevine and through your networks about what some of these farmers have been enduring?
We know that there are whole farms that are completely underwater, and they've luckily, because of advance warning, have shifted stock appropriately. We haven't heard, and I take this as a positive, we haven't heard of major animal welfare concerns. There will be isolated instances where there will be stock that are being sent to higher land, but that hasn't been good enough. That does happen sometimes with adverse events. But in the main, I think because we had advance warning, farmers all knew how severe this front was going to be and the cyclone was going to be, that stock movement was done well. But yes, there are farms certainly underwater. There's a lot of infrastructure damage, anecdotally, but again, until we've done a bit more survey work, we're not going to know the extent of that. We know that particularly in that sort of Pukekohe area where a lot of vegetable producers and of course there are other farmland farms around that area and out towards Akiaki were pretty devastated from the floods around the Auckland anniversary weekend. And so what we're hearing now is it's wet on wet. So what little bit was sort of salvageable now has gone. We're really hopeful that we're not going to end up in a big food security issue. I mean, 40% of all of our vegetables come out of Pukekohe from a domestic point of view. So how's that going to impact 2-3 months down the track as a country? So those things that we're going to have to factor in. What kind of support, because crops generally are uninsurable. So, what are we going to look at in terms of assistance to farmers and growers as this unfolds? We're also working with NIWA at the moment to understand what the weather patterns look like over the next 2 months. There will unfortunately be more fronts that come through. This is the time of year where we are susceptible as a country to big weather and storm surges. So, just trying to get an understanding that as we get through this one, how much time we've got before there's another, even if it's a relatively small one. As I said, wet on wet is very unhelpful.